I watched my own funeral from the balcony of the funeral home's second floor, hidden behind dusty velvet curtains that smelled like mothballs and broken promises. My name is Lily Morrison, and 3 days ago I died. At least, that's what everyone believed. At 34 years old, I never imagined I'd have to fake my own death just to see who my husband really was when he thought I wasn't watching. Below me, Marcus stood at the front of the chapel in his perfectly tailored black suit, the one I'd helped him pick out for his promotion celebration last year. His hand rested on the closed casket, his shoulders shaking with what everyone assumed were sobs of grief. But I could see his face in the reflection of the polished wood. He wasn't crying. He was checking his phone. "She was the love of my life," Marcus said, his voice cracking in all the right places. The performance was flawless. I'd give him that. "I don't know how I'll go on without her." Sarah stepped forward from the front row. "My best friend since college. The woman who'd held my hand through my father's death 5 years ago. The woman I'd named as godmother to the children Marcus and I were planning to have. She wore a black dress I'd never seen before, designer, expensive. The kind of thing she always said she couldn't afford on a teacher's salary." She placed her hand on Marcus's shoulder. The touch lasted 3 seconds too long. Her thumb made a small circle against the fabric of his jacket. A gesture of comfort that looked innocent to everyone else. But I'd seen that exact movement before, caught in the corner of my vision during dinner parties. At family gatherings, in moments I'd convinced myself I was imagining things. I wasn't imagining anything anymore. The funeral director had been suspicious when I'd approached him with my plan. Daniel Chun ran Chun and Son's funeral home, and I'd met him 6 months ago when handling arrangements for my colleague who died suddenly. He was professional, discreet, and more importantly, he owed me a favor after I'd helped his daughter get into the nursing program at the hospital where I worked. "You want me to help you fake your death?" he'd asked, staring at me like I'd lost my mind. "I need to know the truth," I'd told him. "And people only show their real faces when they think no one's watching." It had taken 3 months of planning. The car accident was real enough. My Honda totaled on a rainy Tuesday evening on Highway 405, but I'd walked away with nothing more than bruises, while the police report stated the driver had been taken to the hospital with life-threatening injuries. The hospital paperwork, carefully altered with help from Daniel's connections in the medical examiner's office, showed I'd died from internal bleeding at 11:47 p.m. The closed casket funeral was easy to justify. "Too much trauma," Daniel had told Marcus gently. "It's better this way. Let people remember her as she was." Marcus had agreed immediately, almost eagerly. That was the first confirmation I'd needed. From my hiding spot, I watched Sarah lean closer to Marcus, whispering something in his ear. He nodded, his hand finding hers. Their fingers intertwined for just a moment before they remembered where they were and pulled apart, but I'd seen it. I'd seen everything. My mother sat in the third row, genuinely crying, her sister's arm around her shoulders. She didn't know. None of my real family knew. This secret was mine alone, carried only by Daniel and his daughter Michelle, who stood guard at the balcony door, making sure no one wandered upstairs during the service. Pastor Williams droned on about eternal rest and God's plan. I stopped listening. My attention was fixed on Marcus and Sarah, watching every micro-expression, every stolen glance, every moment of contact they thought no one could see. Marcus's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his entire demeanor shifted. Something almost like a smile crossed his face before he remembered to look sad again. Sarah checked her phone seconds later. Same message, I realized. They were texting each other. At my funeral, while standing 3 feet apart, pretending to grieve, the service ended. People filed past the casket, paying their respects to an empty box that held nothing but weighted sandbags and one of my old hospital uniforms. I watched Marcus accept condolences with practiced solemnity, watched Sarah play the devastated best friend with Oscar-worthy precision. But when the chapel finally emptied and they thought they were alone, everything changed. Marcus checked the doorway twice before pulling Sarah into his arms. Not the hug of a grieving husband seeking comfort from his wife's friend. This was different. Desperate, familiar, intimate. "We have to be careful," Sarah whispered, loud enough for me to hear from my perch above. "People are watching." "I know." Marcus replied, his hand cradling her face in a gesture I recognized because it used to be mine. Just a few more days. Then we can stop pretending. My hands gripped the balcony railing so hard my knuckles went white. Michelle touched my shoulder, a silent reminder to breathe, to stay quiet, to let them hang themselves with their own words. The life insurance pays out in 30 days, Marcus continued, and my blood turned to ice. $2 million. We'll finally be free, Sarah. Free to be together without hiding. Sarah pulled back slightly, and I could see her face now. See the smile that had nothing to do with grief and everything to do with greed? What about the investigation? Won't they look into it? Car accident on a rainy night? Happens every day. The police report is clean. Marcus's voice carried that smug confidence I used to find attractive. Now it made me sick. Besides, I was home all evening. You were my alibi, remember? You called me right after she left, said you were worried about her driving in the storm. They'd planned this. Not just the affair. They'd planned my death. My real death. The rage that filled me was cold, surgical. Nothing like the hot anger I'd expected. This was calculation. This was clarity. This was the moment I realized that faking my death was the smartest thing I'd ever done. I can't believe she never suspected. Sarah laughed. Actually laughed in the chapel where my family had just mourned me. All those late nights at the hospital. She was so trusting. Too trusting, Marcus agreed. Made it easy. Michelle's hand tightened on my shoulder. She'd heard everything too. Good. I'd need witnesses for what came next. They kissed then, long and deep, in front of my casket. The symbolism wasn't lost on me. This was their victory celebration, their freedom, their new beginning built on top of my grave. Except I wasn't in that grave. I was very much alive. And I was going to make sure they paid for every lie, every betrayal, every moment they'd stolen from me. If you're drawn into this story of betrayal and justice, don't forget to subscribe because what happens next will show you exactly how far someone will go when they discover the truth at their own funeral. As Marcus and Sarah finally left the chapel, still whispering about their plans for the insurance money, Michelle turned to me with wide eyes. What now? She asked. I smiled for the first time in 3 days. It wasn't a kind smile. Now? I said quietly, watching through the window as Marcus helped Sarah into his car, his hand lingering on her waist. Now we let them think they've won. Let them make mistakes. Let them get comfortable. Because I'd learned something important in those 3 days of being dead. People show you who they really are when they think you can't see them anymore. And what I'd seen was enough to destroy them both. The question wasn't if I'd get my revenge. The question was how thoroughly I'd execute it. Daniel's daughter Michelle had converted the funeral home's upstairs apartment into my temporary headquarters. It wasn't much, just a small studio that smelled like cleaning solution and old furniture, but it had something crucial, a clear view of the parking lot and a computer connected to the security cameras Daniel had installed throughout the building years ago. Those cameras were still active, and one of them pointed directly at the back entrance where Marcus thought he was having private conversations. For the next 5 days, I watched my life get dismantled piece by piece. On Monday, Sarah showed up at my house, our house, the one Marcus and I had bought 3 years ago after I'd gotten my promotion to head nurse at St. Catherine's Hospital. I watched through the nanny cam app on my phone, the same cameras I'd installed 6 months ago when I'd first started noticing things didn't add up. 6 months ago, Marcus had started coming home smelling like perfume that wasn't mine. 6 months ago, Sarah had begun canceling our weekly coffee dates, always with elaborate excuses. 6 months ago, I'd found a receipt in Marcus's car for a hotel room downtown, dated on a Thursday when he'd told me he was at a business conference in Portland. I hadn't confronted him then. Something had stopped me, some instinct that told me the truth was bigger than one hotel receipt. So I'd done what any nurse trained to spot symptoms would do. I'd started documenting everything. The cameras had been my idea. Marcus had even helped me install them, thinking they were for security after a break-in 2 blocks over. He had no idea I could access the feeds from anywhere, at any time. Now I watched Sarah walk through my living room like she owned it, Marcus trailing behind her with 2 glasses of wine. My wine, the expensive Pinot Noir I'd been saving for our anniversary next month. The expensive Pinot Noir I'd been saving for our Pinot Noir I'd been saving for our anniversary next month. I just This will all be ours soon, Sarah said, running her hand along the back of my favorite reading chair. I've always loved this house. Marcus pulled her onto the couch. The same couch where he and I had planned our future, talked about babies, dreamed about growing old together. 30 days until the insurance pays out. Then we can do whatever we want. What about her mother? Sarah asked, and my chest tightened. Catherine keeps calling me. She wants to go through Lily's things together. Says it would help with the grief. Marcus shrugged, when discussing my mother's pain. Stall her. Tell her you're not ready. Once we get the money, we'll be in the Maldives anyway. Let Catherine deal with the house. They'd already planned a vacation. With my life insurance money. While my mother cried herself to sleep every night. I'd called my mom once, 3 days after the funeral, using a burner phone Daniel had given me. Disguised my voice, pretended to be a nurse from the hospital calling to check on her. She'd sobbed through the entire conversation. Talking about her baby girl. How she'd never get to see me have children. How she'd failed to protect me. That call had almost broken me. Almost made me reveal the truth. But Michelle had been there, reminding me that if I wanted justice, if I wanted to make them pay for everything, I needed to see this through. On Tuesday, I discovered just how deep the betrayal went. Marcus met with Alan Chen, his financial advisor, at a coffee shop downtown. I'd followed him there, wearing a wig and sunglasses, sitting 3 tables away with my back turned. The acoustic in that cafe was terrible, which meant sound carried perfectly. I need to know exactly when the insurance money will clear, Marcus said, his voice low but audible. Alan hesitated. Marcus, are you sure about this? Moving money around right after Lily's death, it might look suspicious. The police ruled it an accident. There's nothing to investigate. Marcus's tone carried an edge I'd never heard before. I want everything transferred to the offshore account within 48 hours of the payout. Can you do that or not? Offshore account. He'd set up an offshore account. How long had he been planning this? What about the joint accounts? Alan asked. Lily's name is still on everything. Her name was on everything, Marcus corrected, and the past tense made my hands shake. I'll have the bank transfer it all to my personal account. Widow's rights and all that. Our savings. The money I'd earned working double shifts, covering holidays, taking every overtime opportunity so we could build a future. He was going to steal all of it. Wednesday brought a new horror. Sarah arrived at the house with boxes. Moving boxes. I watched through the cameras as she and Marcus went through my closet, my drawers, my personal belongings, sorting everything into piles. Goodwill can have most of it, Sarah said, holding up my nursing scrubs with distaste. God, did she ever wear anything that wasn't ugly? Marcus laughed. Actually laughed. She was always more focused on being practical than pretty. Made my life boring as hell. Boring. Our 8 years together, reduced to that one word. Sarah pulled out a dress I'd worn to our wedding reception. The blue one Marcus had said made me look like a princess. This is nice. I think I'll keep it. She tried it on right there, in my bedroom, in front of my husband, modeling my clothes like I was already erased from existence. Marcus pulled her close, kissing her neck, his hands roaming over fabric I'd worn on one of the happiest days of my life. I had to leave the funeral home. Had to walk for hours through downtown Seattle, my hood pulled up, sunglasses on, trying to process the fact that my entire marriage had been a lie. When had it started? Had Marcus ever really loved me, or had I just been convenient? Someone stable to come home to while he planned his real life with someone else? By Thursday, I'd stopped crying. The grief had crystallized into something harder, sharper, more useful. Michelle found me in the apartment, surrounded by printed screenshots from the cameras, bank statements I'd pulled from our online accounts, phone records showing thousands of texts between Marcus and Sarah going back 2 years. 2 years. They'd been planning this for 2 years. My dad says you need to be careful, Michelle said, setting down a bag of takeout I couldn't eat. If they find out you're alive before you're ready, ... They won't, I said, my voice flat. Because I'm going to let them think they've won. Let them get the insurance money. Let them book their vacation. Let them celebrate. And then? I looked at the evidence spread across the table. Text messages where they'd discussed my work schedule, figuring out when the house would be empty. Photos of them together at hotels, restaurants, places they'd been careful to visit outside our neighborhood. Financial records showing Marcus had been siphoning money from our joint account for months, 500 here, 1,000 there, building up a nest egg I'd never noticed because I'd trusted him. The worst part wasn't the affair. It was the premeditation. They hadn't just fallen in love and made a mistake. They'd calculated, planned, executed a strategy to get rid of me and take everything I'd worked for. And then I destroy them, I said simply. Friday evening, I got the call that changed everything. Detective Morrison, no relation, apparently there were a lot of Morrisons in Seattle, called Marcus to follow up on some routine questions about the accident. I listened through the bug Michelle had helped me plant in Marcus's car earlier that week. Technology was a beautiful thing when you knew how to use it. Just a formality, Mr. Morrison, the detective said. Your wife's accident, we're closing the case. But I need to confirm a few details about the insurance policy. Of course, detective. Whatever you need. The policy was taken out 18 months ago, correct? $2 million payout? That's right. Lily wanted to make sure I'd be taken care of if anything happened to her. She was always thoughtful like that. The lie came so smoothly, I almost believed it myself. Except I hadn't taken out that policy. Marcus had. I'd signed the papers thinking they were refinancing documents for the house. He'd mixed them in with a stack of paperwork, had me sign everything at once, rushed me because I'd been late for a shift at the hospital. And you were home the evening of the accident? Yes, detective. Sarah Brennan called me around 7:30, said she was worried about Lily driving in the storm. I tried calling Lily, but she didn't answer. Then the police showed up at my door around midnight. Perfect alibi. Perfect timeline, perfect lies. The detective thanked him and hung up. I waited, knowing what would come next. Marcus immediately called Sarah. It's done. The investigation is closed. We're clear. Sarah's squeal of delight came through the phone speaker. Finally? I've been so stressed. When do we leave? 2 weeks. I booked us a villa in the Maldives. 3 months. All expenses paid. By the time we get back, everyone will have moved on, and we can start our real life together. What about her mom? Her friends? What about them? Marcus's voice turned cold. Lily's dead, Sarah. The sooner everyone accepts that and moves on, the better. We've played the grieving husband and devastated best friend long enough. I'm tired of pretending I'm sad she's gone. Those words should have hurt, should have cut me deep. Instead, they fueled something dark and determined inside me. Because Marcus had just made a critical mistake. He'd stopped being careful, thought the finish line was in sight, and let his guard down. People always made mistakes when they thought they'd already won. That night, I met with Daniel in his office. He'd been more than helpful, but now I needed to know why. My daughter told me you helped her get into nursing school, he said, pouring 2 glasses of whiskey. What she didn't tell you was that her application had been rejected. Twice. You went to the board personally, advocated for her, explained that her low test scores were because she'd been working 3 jobs to support her younger brothers after. I had my heart attack. You got her a scholarship she never would have received otherwise. I remembered Michelle's application. Remembered seeing a brilliant, determined girl buried under circumstances that weren't her fault. She earned that spot. I just made sure the board saw it. You saved her future, Daniel said quietly. So when you came to me with this crazy plan, I figured I owed you one chance to save yours. He slid a folder across the desk. Everything you asked for. Bank records, phone logs, photos, statements from my security company showing the cameras were installed months before your death. It's all documented, all legal, all admissible in court. I opened the folder, seeing my case laid out in black and white. Evidence of conspiracy, fraud, attempted murder. Because that's what it was. They might not have pushed me off a cliff, but they'd planned my death. Taken out an insurance policy, created an alibi, and waited for an opportunity. The car accident had been real. But what if Marcus had tampered with my brakes? What if Sarah's worried phone call had been designed to put me behind the wheel during the worst storm of the year? I'd been so focused on the betrayal I'd missed the bigger picture. They hadn't just wanted me gone. They'd actively tried to make it happen. There's something else, Daniel said, pulling out another document. I have a friend at the DMV. He pulled the maintenance records for your Honda. Someone tampered with your brake line 3 days before the accident. Clean cut, professional job designed to fail under pressure. The room spun. They'd actually tried to kill me. The accident that should have been fatal, that would have been fatal if I hadn't been driving slower than usual because I'd stopped to help an elderly man change his tire. 5 minutes that had saved my life. 5 minutes that had given me the chance to see who my husband really was. What do you want to do with all this? Daniel asked. I closed the folder, my decision made. I want to give them exactly enough rope to hang themselves. Let them take the money, book the vacation, celebrate their victory. And then, when they're at their highest point, when they think they've gotten away with everything ... I didn't need to finish the sentence. Daniel understood. The hunter didn't strike when the prey was alert and cautious. The hunter waited until the prey felt safe, comfortable, convinced the danger had passed. Marcus and Sarah thought they'd killed me and gotten away with it. Soon they'd learn that some ghosts don't stay buried, and the deadliest revenge comes from someone who's already lost everything they had to lose. Rachel Torres walked into Chen and Son's funeral home on a Monday morning, her designer heels clicking against the marble floor with the kind of confidence that came from winning cases no one else thought possible. She was Seattle's most ruthless divorce attorney, and according to Michelle, she specialized in cases involving fraud and deception. You must be Lily, Rachel said, extending her hand. She was younger than I'd expected, maybe 40, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Michelle told me you had an interesting situation. Interesting. That was one word for it. We sat in Daniel's office while I laid out everything I discovered over the past 2 weeks. Rachel listened without interrupting, occasionally making notes on her tablet, her expression never changing. When I finished, she sat back and studied me. Do you know what you're asking for? She said finally. You're not just talking about divorce. You're talking about criminal charges, attempted murder, insurance fraud, conspiracy. Your husband and your best friend will go to prison. Good, I said simply. Rachel smiled, and it wasn't a kind smile. It was the smile of a predator recognizing another predator. Then let's make sure we do this right. Because if we're going to destroy them, we're going to do it so thoroughly they'll never recover. Over the next week, Rachel built what she called an airtight case. She brought in a private investigator named James Park, a former police detective who'd left the force after exposing corruption in the department. James had connections everywhere, people who owed him favors, access to databases and records that shouldn't have been accessible. Within 72 hours, he'd uncovered things even I hadn't known. Your husband's been planning this for 3 years, James said, spreading documents across Daniel's conference table. The affair with Sarah started at your father's funeral, like you suspected, but the financial planning started 6 months before that. 6 months before my father died, Marcus had opened accounts I'd never known existed. Small amounts at first, money transferred from our joint savings in increments I wouldn't notice. By the time Dad passed away, Marcus had already accumulated $40,000 in a separate account. He was waiting for something, Rachel said, studying the timeline. An opportunity. A catalyst. My father's death had been that catalyst. I'd been devastated, barely functional for months. Marcus had handled everything. All the finances, all the bills, all the decisions I'd been too grief-stricken to make. And I'd been grateful for it, thought it showed how much he loved me. Instead, he'd been stealing from me while I mourned. There's more, James continued, pulling up a photo on his laptop. Sarah's divorce wasn't what she told you it was. I'd always believed Sarah's marriage had ended because her husband cheated. She'd cried on my shoulder for weeks, told me about finding texts, catching him with another woman. I'd helped her move out, lent her money for a security deposit, welcomed her into my home when she said she had nowhere else to go. The photo James showed me was Sarah and her ex-husband Tom at a lawyer's office. They were signing papers, shaking hands, smiling. The date stamp was from 18 months ago. They faked the divorce, James said. It's real legally, but it wasn't about infidelity. It was about protecting assets. Tom's business was going under. Creditors were circling. They divorced on paper to shield Sarah from the debt, but they're still together. He's living in an apartment Sarah pays for with money your husband's been giving her. My head spun. So, Sarah never left Tom? Not really. The whole devastated divorcee act was exactly that, an act. A way to get close to you, gain access to your house, your finances, your life. James pulled up more photos. Sarah and Tom at a restaurant last month. Sarah and Tom at a movie theater. Sarah and Tom entering a motel room while Marcus waited in the parking lot. They'd all been working together. All three of them. Planning my death, planning to take my money, planning their futures while pretending to care about me. Why? The question came out broken. Why go through all this? Why not just divorce me? Rachel answered that one. Because divorce means splitting assets 50-50. Life insurance means Marcus gets everything, plus $2 million. And with you gone, there's no one to contest your will, which I'm guessing names Marcus as sole beneficiary. She was right. I'd updated my will 5 years ago, right after my father died, when I'd been thinking about mortality and legacy. I'd left everything to Marcus, trusting he'd take care of my mother if something happened to me. Here's what we're going to do, Rachel said, shifting into strategy mode. First, you stay dead. Let them think they've won. The insurance money is about to pay out in 72 hours according to the timeline. They'll get that money, and the moment they do, they'll make mistakes. People always get sloppy when they think they're safe. What kind of mistakes? I asked. The kind we can use to bury them, James said. Marcus already booked flights to the Maldives. 3 months, first-class tickets, a villa that costs $15,000 a week. He's been texting Sarah about all the things they're going to do with your money. Those texts, combined with the tampered brake line, the fake timeline about Sarah's phone call, the offshore accounts, that's conspiracy to commit murder. Rachel leaned forward. But we need one more thing to make this absolutely bulletproof. We need them to admit what they did. On record. How do we get that? I asked, though I already suspected the answer. You come back from the dead, Rachel said with that predator smile. But not yet. Not until they've taken the money, celebrated, let their guard down completely. Then you confront them with a wire. Get them to confess, and we'll have everything we need. The plan was risky. It required perfect timing. It required me to watch them spend my money, celebrate my death, mock my memory for weeks longer. It required a strength I wasn't sure I had. But looking at those photos, at the evidence of their betrayal, at proof that 3 people had conspired to murder me for money, I found that strength somewhere deep inside. There's one problem, James said. Your mother. She's been asking questions, pushing for answers. Sarah's been stalling, but Catherine's getting suspicious. She told Sarah yesterday she wants to examine your car personally, wants to understand exactly what happened. My mother. God, I missed her. Missed her voice, her hugs, her ability to see through any lie I'd ever tried to tell. She knew something was wrong. Mothers always did. Can we bring her in? I asked. Tell her the truth? Rachel shook her head. Not yet. I know it's hard, but the fewer people who know you're alive, the better. If Catherine knows, she might slip up, might look at Marcus differently, might give something away. We can't risk it. She was right, but it felt like another betrayal. My mother was suffering, grieving for a daughter who wasn't dead, and I couldn't tell her the truth. Not yet. That afternoon, I watched through the cameras as the insurance money cleared into Marcus's account. $2 million. I saw him check his phone. Saw the moment he verified the transfer. Saw the smile that spread across his face. He immediately called Sarah. It's done. We're rich, baby. Sarah arrived at the house 20 minutes later. They opened champagne, my champagne, the bottle we'd been saving for our 10th anniversary next year. They toasted to freedom, to new beginnings, to a life without me. "I can't believe we pulled it off," Sarah said, her voice giddy. "I honestly thought we'd get caught." "I told you I had it all planned out," Marcus replied. The break line, the storm, your phone call establishing the timeline. It was perfect. There it was. Confession on camera. James had upgraded the system, improved the audio quality. Every word was crystal clear, admissible in court. But Rachel had been right. We needed more. We needed them so comfortable, so certain of their safety, that they'd confess everything without hesitation. The next 2 weeks were torture. I watched them pack my belongings into boxes, donate my clothes to Goodwill, sell my jewelry. Sarah wore my engagement ring, the one Marcus had proposed with 8 years ago, claiming she'd always loved it. They told my mother they were cleaning out the house because it hurt too much to see my things. Catherine had come over to help, crying as she folded my clothes, and I'd had to watch from the funeral home as Sarah pretended to comfort her while wearing my necklace. Marcus transferred money out of our accounts, closed my credit cards, removed my name from everything we'd shared. Piece by piece, he was erasing me from existence, and there was nothing I could do but watch and document. The worst part came when they visited my grave. I'd insisted on a real burial plot, even though the casket was empty. People needed somewhere to mourn. My mother visited every day, leaving flowers, talking to a daughter who wasn't there. I'd watched her through Michelle's phone, recorded videos of her grief, saved them for the moment when I need to show the world what Marcus and Sarah had done. But on the day before their flight to the Maldives, Marcus and Sarah visited together. I followed them to the cemetery, watching from behind a tree as they stood over my headstone. Lily Morrison. Beloved daughter, wife, and friend, 1989 to 2024. Sarah laughed. Actually laughed. "At my grave, we should take a picture," she said, pulling out her phone. "Something to remember this moment." Marcus wrapped his arm around her, both of them smiling at the camera with my headstone in the background. A trophy photo. Proof of their victory. That was the moment I stopped feeling sad and started feeling powerful. Because they just handed me exactly what I needed. Evidence of their complete lack of remorse. Proof that this wasn't a tragic accident or a mistake. This was calculated, cruel, and they were proud of it. Rachel called that evening. "The day wants to meet with you." James showed him everything we have. He's ready to move forward, but he wants to hear your story directly. When? Tomorrow. Before they leave for the Maldives. Because once they're out of the country, this gets complicated. Tomorrow. Less than 24 hours before Marcus and Sarah would board a plane to paradise, spending my money, celebrating my death. Less than 24 hours before I'd walk into a DA's office and bring them crashing back to reality. I looked at myself in the mirror of the funeral home apartment. I'd lost weight, dark circles under my eyes, hair longer than I usually kept it. I looked like someone who died and come back different. Maybe I had. "Tell the day I'll be there," I said. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in the small apartment bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything that had led to this moment. Every lie I'd believed, every red flag I'd ignored, every time I'd chosen to trust when I should have questioned. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "I know what you're doing. We need to talk. Tom, Sarah's ex-husband. Or not ex-husband." My heart hammered. How did he know? How had he found out I was alive? Before I could respond, another text came through. "Meet me at Pike Place Market tomorrow. 8 a.m., coffee stand by the fish throwers. Come alone, or I go to Marcus." This wasn't part of the plan. This was a variable Rachel hadn't accounted for. A threat that could destroy everything we'd built. But it was also an opportunity. Because if Tom was reaching out, if he was willing to talk, maybe he was scared. Maybe he knew Marcus and Sarah were planning to cut him out. Maybe he could be flipped. I texted back. "I'll be there." Michelle knocked on the door. "Everything okay?" "I heard your phone." I showed her the texts. Her face went pale. "You can't go alone. It could be a trap. Or it could be the last piece we need," I said. "Tom knows everything. He's been part of this from the beginning. If I can get him to testify against Marcus and Sarah ... Or he kills you for real this time. The thought had crossed my mind. But I'd come too far to stop now. I died once already. What was one more risk? Call James, I said. Tell him I need surveillance tomorrow morning at Pike Place. He doesn't need to be close, just close enough to step in if things go wrong. Michelle hesitated, then nodded. Your funeral is going to be a lot more complicated if you actually die this time. I laughed, surprised I still could. Then let's make sure that doesn't happen. Tomorrow I'd meet with the man who'd helped plan my murder. Tomorrow I'd find out if he was an ally or another enemy. Tomorrow the game would shift in ways none of us could predict. But one thing was certain. Marcus and Sarah's flight to the Maldives was never going to take off. Because by the time tomorrow ended, they'd be answering questions in an interrogation room, watching their perfect plan fall apart piece by piece, realizing that the woman they'd tried to kill was very much alive and coming for everything they'd stolen. Pike Place Market at 8 in the morning smelled like fresh fish and rain. Tom Brennan sat at the coffee stand, looking nothing like the confident man in the photos James had shown me. He was nervous, checking his phone every few seconds, eyes darting around like he expected someone to appear at any moment. James was positioned 40 feet away, pretending to browse vegetables while keeping me in his line of sight. Rachel had wanted to come too, but we'd agreed that too many people would spook Tom. This had to look like a private conversation. I sat down across from Tom, and his eyes widened. Up close, I could see he hadn't slept in days. Good. Neither had I. Jesus, he breathed. Michelle said you were alive, but seeing you is different. They really think they killed you. How did you find out? I asked, keeping my voice low. Tom laughed bitterly. Because Sarah got drunk 3 nights ago and told me everything. Bragged about it. About how smart they'd been. How perfect the plan was. How they were about to leave the country with $2 million. He leaned forward. She also told me they weren't planning to bring me along. There it was. The crack in their alliance. Greed destroying greed. After everything I did for them, Tom continued, his voice rising before he caught himself. I faked a divorce, destroyed my credit, lost my business, also Sarah could get close to you without suspicion. And now she's leaving me broke while she runs off with your husband and your money. So you want revenge, I said flatly. I want what I'm owed. His eyes hardened. I helped plan this. I should get my cut. But if they're cutting me out, then maybe I should cut a deal with someone else. I'd expected this. Tom wasn't having a moral awakening. He was just another rat looking for a way off the sinking ship. But Rachel had prepared me for exactly this scenario. I'm meeting with the district attorney in 2 hours, I said, watching his face carefully. I have evidence of everything. The tampered brake line, the offshore accounts, the insurance fraud. I have recordings of Marcus and Sarah confessing. I have enough to put them both away for 25 years. Tom's face went white. And me? That depends. The DA wants to know who cut my brake line. Marcus doesn't have the mechanical knowledge. You do. You owned an auto repair shop before the bankruptcy. The silence between us was heavy with implication. Tom's hands shook as he picked up his coffee cup. They promised me $100,000, he said finally. Said once the insurance paid out, I'd get my share. I did the brake line, made it look like normal wear and tear. I thought ... I thought it was just talk, you know? Just planning. I didn't think they'd actually go through with it, but they did. And you helped them. Tom's eyes filled with tears. I didn't want to. But Sarah said if I didn't help, she'd tell the bankruptcy court I'd been hiding assets. I'd go to prison anyway. At least this way, I'd have money when I got out. I felt nothing looking at him. No pity, no anger. Just cold calculation. The DA will offer you immunity in exchange for testimony. Full cooperation, complete disclosure of everything you know. You wear a wire tonight, get Marcus and Sarah to confirm everything on tape, and you walk away. Tonight? Tom's voice cracked. They leave for the Maldives tomorrow morning. Exactly. Which means tonight, they'll be celebrating. Relaxed. Off guard. Perfect time for a wire. Tom was quiet for a long moment, weighing his options. Prison or betrayal. Some choice. Okay, he said finally. I'll do it. But I want the immunity deal in writing before I wear any wire. Done. The DA's office at 10. Don't be late. I stood to leave and Tom grabbed my arm. For what it's worth, I am sorry. About your dad's funeral, that's when it started. Marcus and Sarah, they were supposed to just talk, just comfort each other. But then it became more. And once it started, I couldn't stop it. I pulled my arm away. You could have warned me. You could have told me the truth at any point in the last 3 years. You chose money over someone's life. That's not something sorry fixes. I walked away, leaving him sitting there with his guilt and his coffee. James fell into step beside me as we left the market. He'll flip, James said. Guys like that always do. I know. Now we just need to make sure everything goes perfectly tonight. At 10 a.m., Tom signed his immunity agreement in the district attorney's office. By noon, he was fitted with a wire that looked like a regular shirt button. By 3 p.m., Rachel had briefed him on exactly what questions to ask, what confessions we needed on tape. By 6 p.m., I was hiding in James's surveillance van outside my own house, watching through cameras as Tom knocked on the door. Marcus answered, surprised. Tom? What are you doing here? We need to talk, Tom said, and his nervousness actually worked in our favor. It looked like fear of getting caught, not fear of wearing a wire. Can I come in? Sarah appeared behind Marcus, her face tightening when she saw Tom. I told you not to come here. What if someone sees you? Nobody saw me. Please, just 5 minutes. They let him in, and I watched Marcus pour 3 glasses of whiskey, none of them suspecting that every word was being recorded. What's this about? Marcus asked, impatient. My cut, Tom said. You said 100,000. I want it before you leave tomorrow. Sarah laughed. We're not giving you anything until we're safely out of the country. Once we're established in the Maldives, we'll wire you the money. That's not what we agreed. Tom's voice rose, genuine anger mixing with performance. I cut the brake line. I destroyed my business for this. I deserve my share now. There it was. Confession number 1. Captured clearly. Marcus stepped closer to Tom, his voice dropping to that dangerous tone I'd heard once before. Years ago, when he threatened a guy at a bar who'd hit on me. Back then, I thought he was protecting me. Now I understood he was just possessive. You'll get your money when we say you get your money, Marcus said. Right now, you need to disappear. Go back to your apartment and wait. If you screw this up, if you do anything stupid, you get nothing. Understand? I just want what I'm owed for helping you kill your wife, Tom said, and I could hear the slight emphasis on those last words. Getting everything on record. Sarah moved between them. Keep your voice down. And stop saying it like that. It was an accident, remember? Tragic accident on a rainy night. That's the story. Right, Tom said. An accident you planned for 6 months. An accident where I cut the brake line exactly how Marcus told me to. An accident where you called her right before she left to make sure she'd be driving on the highway during the storm. Jesus Christ, Tom. Marcus grabbed him by the collar. Are you trying to get us all arrested? Shut up about the details. I just want to make sure we're all clear on what happened, Tom said, and I could hear the slight tremor in his voice. He was terrified, but he was getting everything we needed. You planned it, I executed it, Sarah provided the alibi, and now we're supposed to split $2 million 3 ways. That was before you became a liability, Sarah said coldly. Now I'm thinking maybe you don't get anything. Tom played his final card. Then maybe I should talk to the police. Tell them everything. About the fake divorce, about the brake line, about all of it. The room went deadly silent. Marcus's face transformed into something ugly, something I'd never seen before. He pulled Tom close, his voice a harsh whisper that the wire picked up perfectly. If you go to the police, if you say one word to anyone, I will kill you myself. Not fake it, not make it look like an accident. I will put a bullet in your head and dump your body where no one will ever find it. Do you understand me? That's a threat, Tom said, and I could hear the fear now. Real fear. You just threatened to kill me. It's not a threat, Marcus said. It's a promise. You helped us kill Lily. That makes you just as guilty as we are. So sit down, shut up, and wait for your money like a good boy. Sarah's phone buzzed. She checked it, and her face lit up. Our flight confirmation just came through. First class to Paradise, leaving tomorrow at noon. Can't wait, Marcus said, finally releasing Tom. 3 months in the Maldives, then we come back as the grieving widower and supportive best friend who found comfort in each other after tragedy. Everyone will think it's romantic. What about her mother? Tom asked. Catherine's been asking questions. Catherine will move on eventually, Sarah said dismissively. Once we're married and settled, she accepts reality. Besides, what's she going to do? Her daughter's dead and buried. There's no evidence of anything except a tragic accident. If you're watching this unfold and can't believe how cold they are, subscribe to see exactly how this ends. Because karma is about to hit harder than they ever imagined. Marcus walked Tom to the door. Monday morning, after we land, I'll wire you $50,000. That's your cut. Take it or leave it. 50? You promised 100. 50 for someone who can't keep his mouth shut and threatened to go to the police. Be grateful you're getting anything. Tom left, and through the surveillance van window, I watched him walk to his car, his whole body shaking. He'd done it. We had everything. James was already on the phone with Rachel. We got it all. Full confession, threat of murder, admission of planning. It's airtight. Rachel's voice came through the speaker. I'm calling the day now. Get Tom back here for debriefing, and someone needs to make sure Marcus and Sarah don't leave that house tonight. Already on it, James said, nodding to 2 unmarked police cars that had just pulled up at the end of the block. I stepped out of the van, my legs unsteady. This was it. The moment I'd been planning for 4 weeks. The moment I came back from the dead. Detective Morrison, the one who'd closed my case, approached with 2 uniformed officers. He looked at me like he'd seen a ghost. Which, I supposed he had. Mrs. Morrison, he said carefully, I'm going to need you to stay back while we execute this arrest warrant. I want to be there when you tell them, I said. I want to see their faces. He hesitated, then nodded. Stay behind us. Don't say anything. Don't do anything. Just observe. We walked to the front door, 6 of us total. Detective Morrison knocked. Hard. Official. Marcus opened the door, annoyed. Can I help you? Marcus Morrison, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, insurance fraud, and attempted murder. Sarah Brennan, you're also under arrest on the same charges. The color drained from Marcus's face. What? This is insane. My wife died in an accident. Your wife, Detective Morrison stepped aside, revealing me standing on the porch, is very much alive. The expression on Marcus's face was something I'd remember for the rest of my life. Shock, confusion, horror, and then pure terror as he realized what it meant that I was alive, standing there, watching him get arrested. Sarah appeared behind him, saw me, and actually screamed. No, you're dead. We buried you. You're dead. I got better, I said quietly. Marcus lunged toward me, but the officers had him in handcuffs before he could take 2 steps. You bitch. You set us up. You let us think you were dead. You tried to kill me, I said, my voice steady. You cut my brake line. You took out an insurance policy. You planned my death for 3 years. I just gave you enough rope to hang yourselves. We didn't do anything. Sarah shrieked as they cuffed her. This is entrapment. She can't do this. Actually, Rachel said, appearing from the van with a folder of documents, she can, and she did. And we have everything on tape. Including tonight's conversation where you both confessed to planning Lily's murder. Marcus's face crumbled. Tom, that son of a bitch wore a wire. Smart people don't trust murderers, Rachel said coldly. Tom took an immunity deal about 8 hours ago. He's testifying against both of you in exchange for walking away free. They were dragged to separate police cars, both of them screaming. Sarah crying. Marcus threatening lawsuits and lawyers. The neighbors had come out, watching the show, phones recording everything. Mrs. Chun from next door rushed over to me, tears streaming down her face. Lily? Oh my God, Lily, you're alive. I'm alive, I said, and suddenly I was crying too. I'm okay. I'm alive. The police cars drove away with Marcus and Sarah inside, their perfect plan demolished, their freedom gone, their future reduced to prison cells and trials and consequences they'd never imagined when they'd started this. Detective Morrison came back over. We'll need your full statement tomorrow. Tonight, just rest. You've been through enough. What happens now? I asked. Now they sit in jail until trial. The DA's pushing for no bail given the flight risk. With the confession we have on tape, their lawyers won't be able to do much. You're looking at 20 to 30 years for attempted murder. More if we can prove premeditation, which we can. Rachel put her arm around me. You did it. You actually did it. I looked at my house, the home I thought I'd built with someone who loved me. It was just a building now, filled with lies and betrayal. I'd never live there again, but I was alive. I was free. And Marcus and Sarah were going to pay for every lie, every betrayal, every moment they'd celebrated my death. My phone rang. My mother's number. The police just called me, she sobbed when I answered. They said you're alive. Tell me it's true. Please, baby. Tell me you're really alive. I'm alive, Mom, I said, my voice breaking. I'm so sorry I couldn't tell you before. I'm so sorry for everything. Come home, she begged. Come home right now. I looked at Rachel, at James, at Detective Morrison. They all nodded. I'm coming, I told my mother. I'm coming home. 6 months later, I stood in the King County Courthouse, watching Marcus and Sarah get sentenced. The trial had lasted 3 weeks. The prosecution presented the tampered brake line, the offshore accounts, the insurance policy Marcus had forged my signature on, and most damning of all, the recordings from the night Tom wore the wire. The jury deliberated for 4 hours before returning guilty verdicts on all counts. Marcus got 30 years for attempted murder, conspiracy, and insurance fraud. Sarah got 25. Tom, true to his immunity deal, walked free, but lost everything else in the process. His testimony had been devastating, clinical in its detail about how they planned every aspect of my death. I watched Marcus's face as the judge read his sentence. No more smug confidence. No more calculated charm. Just a broken man realizing he'd thrown away his entire life for money he'd never get to spend. Sarah turned to look at me before the bailiffs led her away. Her eyes were empty, hollow. She mouthed 2 words. I'm sorry. I didn't respond. Sorry didn't resurrect the trust she'd murdered. Sorry didn't erase 3 years of calculated betrayal. Sorry was just another word people used when they finally faced consequences. My mother sat beside me, her hand gripping mine. She'd forgiven me for the deception, understood why I'd had to let her believe I was dead. But the pain of those weeks still lived in her eyes. A reminder that my plan, necessary as it was, had cost more than just Marcus and Sarah's freedom. It's over, she whispered as the courtroom emptied. You can finally move on. She was right, but moving on proved more complicated than I'd expected. The media had devoured the story. Woman fakes death to expose husband's murder plot dominated headlines for weeks. I'd done exactly 1 interview, with a local journalist who'd handled the story with respect rather than sensationalism. I told the truth about the betrayal, the investigation, the pain of watching people I loved celebrate my death. The interview went viral. Suddenly, I was receiving messages from women all over the country who'd experienced similar betrayals. Women who'd ignored red flags, who'd trusted the wrong people, who'd lost themselves trying to save relationships that were already dead. One message changed everything. My name is Jennifer. 3 months ago, I installed cameras in my house because I didn't trust my husband. Yesterday, I saw something that broke my heart. Your story gave me the courage to leave. Thank you for showing me that survival is possible. That's when I realized my experience, as painful as it was, could help others. Not just women facing betrayal, but anyone who'd lost themselves in relationships built on lies. I started a podcast called Resurrection, sharing my story and interviewing others who'd survived deception and rebuilt their lives. Within 2 months, we had 50,000 subscribers. Within 4 months, a major network offered me a show deal. St. Catherine's Hospital welcomed me back with open arms. But I'd changed too much to return to bedside nursing. Instead, I joined their crisis intervention team, working with patients and families navigating trauma. The work was harder emotionally, but infinitely more rewarding. I sold the house without ever setting foot inside again. Too many ghosts, too many memories tainted by knowledge of what had really been happening while I'd been trying to build a life. The money went into a foundation I created to help women leave dangerous relationships, providing resources, legal support, and temporary housing. My father would have been proud of that. He'd always taught me that surviving wasn't enough. You had to take the pain and transform it into something that helped others survive too. Rachel became more than my attorney. She became a friend, one of the first real friendships I'd built since Sarah's betrayal destroyed my ability to trust easily. We met for coffee every Tuesday, talking about cases she was working on, guests for my podcast, and gradually my own healing. You know what impresses me most about you? Rachel said one morning, 6 months after the sentencing. You didn't let them make you bitter. You could have spent the rest of your life angry, closed off, afraid to trust anyone. Instead, you're helping people. I'm still angry sometimes, I admitted. Late at night, I think about everything they took from me. 8 years of my life with Marcus. A friendship with Sarah that went back to college. The ability to trust my own judgment. But you're not stuck there. That's the difference. She was right. Grief and anger were visitors now, not permanent residents. Some days were harder than others. Days when I'd see a couple holding hands and remember when I believed Marcus and I had that kind of love. Days when I'd hear a laugh that sounded like Sarah's and feel that betrayal fresh and raw. But those days became less frequent, replaced by days where I felt strong, capable, certain that surviving their betrayal had revealed something essential about who I really was. Daniel and Michelle Chun became family. They'd risk their business and reputation to help me, motivated by gratitude, but sustained by genuine care. Michelle had graduated nursing school and now worked at St. Catherine's on my old floor. We had lunch together every week, and she'd started seeing James Park, the investigator who'd helped build my case. You played matchmaker from beyond the grave, Michelle teased one afternoon. That's gotta be a first. My mother slowly healed too. The initial anger at being kept in the dark faded as she understood the necessity of the deception. We talked more honestly than we had in years, about her marriage to my father, about the red flags she'd ignored in Marcus, about how sometimes love made you blind to obvious truths. I should have seen it, she said once. The way Sarah looked at him, the way he always found excuses to be around her. But I wanted you to be happy so badly I ignored my own instincts. We both did, I replied. That's how predators work. They don't just deceive one person. They create an entire false reality that everyone around them believes. A year after the sentencing, I received a letter from Sarah. Prison mail, carefully screened, forwarded through Rachel who'd wanted to read it first in case it contained threats. It didn't. It was 6 pages of apologies, explanations, justifications. She'd been lost after her marriage fell apart, she wrote. Tom had been abusive, controlling. Marcus had offered escape, excitement, a chance at a different life. She'd never meant to hurt me. She'd never intended for things to go so far. Classic deflection. Blaming circumstances, trauma, everyone except herself for the choices she'd made. I read it once, then burned it in my fireplace. Some apologies didn't deserve responses. Some relationships stayed dead even after resurrection. Marcus never wrote, never apologized. According to his lawyer, whom Rachel stayed in contact with, Marcus maintained he'd been framed, that I'd orchestrated everything to destroy him. Even in prison, even with all the evidence, he couldn't admit what he'd done. Tom disappeared after the trial. Took his immunity deal and vanished, probably to some small town where no one knew his story. I didn't blame him for running. He'd have to live with what he'd done for the rest of his life, and that was punishment enough. On the first anniversary of my death, I visited my own grave. The headstone was still there, though I'd talked to the cemetery about having it removed. They'd suggested leaving it as a memorial to who I'd been before everything changed. I liked that idea. A tombstone for the naive woman who'd believed in unconditional trust. I placed flowers on the grave, chrysanthemums. which symbolize death and rebirth in some cultures. Appropriate. Thank you, I said to the empty air, to the version of myself that had died so I could survive. Thank you for being strong enough to do what needed to be done. A woman approached hesitantly, clearly recognizing me. This happened occasionally. The price of viral fame. I'm sorry to interrupt, she said. But I wanted to thank you. I'm going through something similar. Not murder, but betrayal. Your story helped me understand I'm not crazy for feeling like something's wrong. I'm not paranoid for wanting proof. Sometimes our instincts are trying to save us. Trust them, I told her. Trust yourself. And remember that surviving is only the beginning. What you build after is what really matters. She thanked me and left, and I stood there thinking about all the women I'd talked to, all the messages I'd received, all the lives that had somehow been impacted by the worst thing that had ever happened to me. My phone buzzed. A text from Rachel. Network approved the show. 12 episodes, national distribution. Congrats, Lily. You're officially a voice for survivors everywhere. I smiled, genuinely smiled. Something that had taken months to feel authentic again. The show would be called Resurrections, plural, because my story was just one of millions. Everyone who'd survived betrayal, abuse, deception, and chose to rebuild rather than break. They all had resurrection stories worth telling. That evening, I recorded the introduction for the pilot episode in a studio downtown. The producer wanted me to start with the dramatic moment, the funeral, the shock. But I had something different in mind. My name is Lily Morrison, I began. And 3 years ago I made a mistake. I trusted someone who didn't deserve it. I ignored red flags because I wanted to believe in love. I sacrificed my own instincts for the comfort of thinking I'd found forever with someone who was planning my death. But this story isn't about how I was betrayed. It's about what I did when I discovered the truth. It's about the strength you find when everything you believed in turns out to be a lie. It's about choosing to stand up, fight back, and refuse to let the people who hurt you define your future. Because here's what I learned. The best revenge isn't destroying the people who wronged you. The best revenge is building a life so authentic, so purposeful, so completely yours that their betrayal becomes just a chapter in your story, not the ending. I paused, letting that sink in. Marcus and Sarah tried to kill me. They failed, not just because I survived the car accident, but because I refused to let them kill who I really am. They took 8 years of my life. I took back the rest. If you're watching this and you've been betrayed, if you're questioning your reality, if you're wondering whether you can survive what's been done to you, I want you to know something. You can. You will. And when you come out the other side, you'll be stronger than you ever imagined possible. The recording light turned off. The producer was crying. That was perfect, she said. That was exactly what people need to hear. I drove home to my new apartment, smaller than the house but entirely mine, filled with furniture I'd chosen, decorated with colors I loved, a space with no ghosts and no lies, just clean slate and possibility. That night, before bed, I did what I'd done every night for the past year. I looked at myself in the mirror and said out loud, I survived. I'm stronger. I'm free. 3 sentences that had carried me through the darkest moments. 3 sentences that reminded me betrayal hadn't broken me. It had revealed exactly how unbreakable I really was. Marcus and Sarah had tried to write my ending. Instead, they'd given me the plot twist that transformed my entire story. They'd intended to bury me. They'd forgotten that sometimes, when you plant a woman in the ground, she doesn't stay dead. She grows roots, finds strength in darkness, and emerges as something far more powerful than she was before. I was alive. I was thriving. And every day, I woke up was another day of proof that the best revenge is simply refusing to let the people who hurt you steal your future. If this story moved you, if it reminded you that you're stronger than your worst moments, subscribe because your story, whatever it is, deserves the same fierce determination to not just survive, but to transform everything painful into something purposeful. Remember, they tried to bury you, but they forgot you were a seed. Now grow.